Hey everyone, my name is Fernando. I'm a Navy veteran of 10 years. I have multiple degrees in public health, allied health, holistic health, nutrition, dietetics, aesthetics, and psychology. And then I also been in nursing for the past 16 years. And I am originally from Pomona, California, raised in Claremont, Montclair, and Norwalk a little bit. And this is my story.
Throughout the hard times, we're still making changes. Find the ways to help each other, many similar faces. There's a way, meditation and pray. God could pave the way, many better days in a peaceful place where we lay. A different state of mind in these crazy days. A way to unwind one day.
So, growing up, I have experienced a lot of different things. Starting from when I was young, my mom was the main person in the picture, but my stepdad was still there, which is Carlos's father. And growing up, it was very interesting because my mom was a very independent woman, and she was like the breadwinner in the house. And she would always work a lot, but she always played a lot. She did drink a lot. She did recreational drugs. She did, but I always remember her just working nonstop. And my stepdad was always around. And growing up was a little bit hard. Me being the oldest and me having a separate father and a different dad. It was, now that I'm older, I noticed a lot of differences in the way I was treated and various of things. One thing that I've experienced with growing up and having my stepdad in the picture was a lot of emotional, physical, sexual abuse throughout growing up. And my brother doesn't know a lot about that. And sorry, it's hard. And the only people I've really told about this is a couple of my cousins and my best friends. They're the only ones that know all the shit that I've been through from being a kid. And at one point, my mom was always working, so his dad was always there. And if a lot of people know what coscorones are, or the switch and extension cord, leather belts, I got hit by all of it. A broom. When my mom was working, she would always beat me and abuse me and stuff. And my siblings didn't know. They were young. I think it happened until I was the age of 11 because my stepdad's been in the picture since I was 6 months, because that's when my father left my mom. My dad was an immigrant, and he left and got deported, and my stepdad was in the picture, and he was the one that was always around. And there's been instances where he would beat me because I wasn't his kid. And there was times where he would just, oh, you're not my son, so I'm gonna go get ice cream, or we're going to the liquor store, you stay here. There was times where he would just, because I just distinctly remember when we lived in Pomona, because we lived in San Francisco in town, and we had the big house there in the corner. We had a lot of dogs. My mom had a dog that was a weenie dog, and my stepdad had a couple pet bulls. And there was times where he would only make me clean the shit in the backyard, and he would only make me clean the bathroom and do stuff around the house. And he wouldn't force them. They would be playing, they would be doing whatever, and he would like force me to eat oysters, and he's like, I bought this, you better fucking eat it, and da da da. And most of the time my mom was always working, so there's always been a resentment. And now that I'm older, I'm like, don't give a fuck. What's the point of hating? There's no point because it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't solve anything. And growing up, his kids, my siblings, all three of them were like given what they wanted. Oh, you guys want ice cream? There's an ice cream truck. I'll get it for you guys. You go in the house. There was a lot of like singling me out. And I don't know if my brother remembers this, but growing up, there was a lot of good memories. Like my siblings growing up, my Uncle Rudy always being around. When I had other people in the house, like my uncle or my Aunt Yoli visiting, my stepdad was the greatest. He was like super there, always, oh, do you guys need anything? Whatever, whatever. But then when they were gone, he's a whole different person. And I remember one time when I was like 10 or 11, and that's when it all ended because at that point, he was beating me one time because I wanted to do something that he wanted me to do. He was beating me with a leather belt, and my sister and my other brother were there with sticks, and we lived in San Antonio and Pomona, and they were hitting him because he was hitting me. And I don't know if my brother remembers this, but they were all crying and then trying to get him off of me. Sorry. And that's why I said there was a lot of, with my stepdad, was a lot of mental and physical abuse. And there's been times where like sexual suggestions were there as well. And my mom didn't know. My mom didn't believe me. Like, oh no, he's not doing that. But that's like her only man that she's been around or had for a while. So, and they've been together since I was 6 months. So his persona and a lot of the different things that he was with one person was different with another person. And like with his kids, he was like cherished. And with me, he was like complete dick. So at 11, I was taken away from my mom. I called the police and reported him. And then I previously tried filing a report against him with our church that we used to do, that used to take care of us. And he was removed from the house and deported back to Mexico after that. And I haven't seen him since. After that, they ended up moving I got taken away and lived with my cousin in Norwalk. And I was there for a year. And then growing up, we were bad. We were bad. Me and my siblings, like we did all kinds of shit. We used to fight. We used to joke around. But then now that I'm older and I've seen like how we grew up, and because we grew up in welfare, we had food stamps. We were Section 8. And when I was taken from my mom, she worked hard. And growing up, and now that I'm older, I saw everything that she did. And I actually recently read a book about the differences in the psychological development of kids between whether they're the oldest child or the youngest child, and the differences between what the mom teaches what the oldest child sees the parent through from that young age till they have the other kid, the perception of the mother is different. And with me growing up in the way I grew up with my stepdad and my mom, up to that age, and then seeing my mom having to be independent and being a single mother and seeing the way she provided. And yeah, I understood why she went to recreational drugs. I understood why she drank. I also understood why we were wetting the bed. I understand now that I'm older and experienced all this. I understand why. And there was times where my brothers would pee the bed. I peed the bed. I peed the bed till I was 13 years old. And a lot of it, now that I'm older and understand more and have done like a lot of research, I've found out that a lot of the traumas that we experience when we sleep, we like out of fear, and then a lot of that resonates with us as we sleep, and we go into REM sleep, and subconsciously we still experience those traumas even though we're not actually experiencing them. And like that explained a lot of the behaviors, a lot of the you're peeing in bed, a lot of different things. And growing up, it's way different. So I got taken away from my mom. My mom went to court, fought for me. I was gone for a year. My siblings moved out of the house, and then after my stepdad was deported, they moved to 12th Street in Pomona, and they lived there for maybe like a year. And then I came back, and then I ended up moving. We ended up getting a house in Claremont, and then we were there since I was like 12, so maybe like 2 years. And then my mom, and I learned a lot about my mom. I learned about my grandmother passing when my mom was my age. When my mom passed, my mom was only 14, and that explained like why the way she was the way she was, because she had me at 35, and she had us a lot older. And when she was younger, she had to take care of her siblings because there wasn't, back in the day, there wasn't that good of a child services. And there was 8 of them trying to take care of each other all throughout the time, during that time when my grandmother passed. And it's crazy that now that I've learned a lot about my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, and me being in the medical field, having experience in psychology, and now that I'm older and I see that and what she went through, and explained a lot more as I got older on why she was the way she was with us and how it affected her. And my mom's escape was having a few beers with her brother and sisters, and going with my aunts and uncles and drinking with them, and having her little friends that she would get high with. And that was her way of coping through her trauma. But when I turned 14, my mom ended up passing away, which was super hard. She ended up getting a brain aneurysm and was at work, and she passed out at work. And me and my siblings were at school. Crook was maybe 8 years old. Yeah, he was 8 years old. And like I said, I was 14. So my Uncle Rudy at the time was living with us, and we lived in Claremont. When my mom passed, that was hard for a lot of people, especially my Uncle Rudy, because my Uncle Rudy and her were like besties. They would get drunk together. He would always come and take care of us while she was working or doing some stuff. And my Uncle Rudy was like he kind of took over like the dad figure, but was always there when my mom needed something or needed help. And my mom was stubborn. She never asked for help. She would try to do things on her own. She was very independent, but she was definitely a hard worker, especially with having 4 kids. And I give her props for that, because growing up, we were fucking bad. When we moved to Claremont and I moved back in the household from living in Norwalk with my cousin, one thing I've noticed is that my mom drank a lot more. She did more drugs. And now that, like I said, now that I'm older, I understood and I get it. And I get with the struggle. I don't have kids, but I do understand why she did what she did and why how she ended up with the aneurysm. And medically, I know why. My mom was overweight. She was obese. She was heavy. She did have high cholesterol. She did have high blood pressure. And those are all physiological attributes to brain aneurysms, but also a lot of genetics as well. And I've learned a lot about this being in the medical field, and that's kind of what pushed me into the medical field. Originally, I had no intentions to, but with my mom and us moving to Claremont, and I thought we were oity-doity and shit because we lived in Claremont, but realizing that it was Section 8, but who cares? But when I came back to my mom and I saw everything, and then after my mom passed, like I flipped because I was the only one that was able to see my mom in the hospital, which was really hard. So now that I'm older, I'm grateful that my siblings didn't see her the way I saw her. Sorry. And like I said, my brother was only 8 years old. I was 14 and I was old enough to go in there and see my mom. And when I went to visit her in the hospital after she had her aneurysm, she did not recognize me. And seeing her all bandaged up with wires sticking out of her head, just look at me and not recognize me was super hard. And at the time, my aunt was fighting for us to live with her. We almost ended up in the foster system because at the time, my cousins were living with my aunt. And yeah, that was like one of my turning points in my life that really hit me the hardest. And then as soon as my aunt went through court and everything, we ended up staying with my aunt. And living with my aunt was a drastic fucking change compared to living with my mom. My mom would let us go, and when we lived in Claremont, we had a neighbor. And it was only him and his son, and we would go over there, play Legos, play games, go play hide and go seek at the school, and my mom always knew we were with them or somewhere in the neighborhood with the kids. But we always knew like we had to be home at a certain time or before it got dark, and we had a lot of freedom. But then as I got older, before she passed, I got to experience a lot of what she went through and having to take care of the four of us. And we weren't easy to take care of. We had my little brother who I feel like he had a lot of different traumas, but I really don't know what he experienced because I don't even know if he remembers half of the shit that I remember. I know that he used to, as a kid, used to do things. And my sister was always on my mom's hip like a fly on shit. My other brother was just running amok. He was like the baddest of us all. When I came back and lived in Claremont with them, my brother was always a little dick. He would call my mom a bitch. He would throw shit at her. He would just... And there was times where that pissed me off, and me and my brother would go at it. One time we fought and we went through a sliding glass door. We broke a coffee table, just fighting because of him, the way he was treating my mom and the way I saw her doing her hardest to take care of four kids and like having us not have food. And my mom, she was a character. Like, even though she was drunk or even though she was high or whatever, she would always make sure we ate. She would always make sure that we were taken care of and make sure we always had food. There was one time where my mom was drunk and she made spaghetti, ghetto spaghetti, with hamburger meat, corn, etc. Ghetto spaghetti, and that shit was still raw, like hard. Um, and we yeah, of course we complained because it's like hard ass spaghetti. Who the hell fuck's gonna eat hard spaghetti? But I do remember my mom drunk and trying to feed us that, and my siblings crying, "What, mom? It's hard," whatever. But now growing up, I was like, she always made an effort. And when we moved in with my aunts, it was a whole different ball game. And I drastically changed after my mom passed. I was in high school by then when my mom passed. I was in eighth grade actually. And this changed me when we moved to my aunt's because we were forced to clean. We were forced to do our own laundry. It was all four of us to one room in bunk beds. I remember my sister falling off the fucking bunk beds, but that's a whole different story. It was a drastic change for us because we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted. Go play with Legos, go to the school and play hide and go seek, go to the park and go play whatever. Where we went to my aunt's, it was more structured. But now looking back, and the way my aunt treated me compared to my siblings was the opposite of what my stepdad used to treat me. I was considered the golden child or the favorite because had a lot more leniency. One, because of me being the oldest. Two, because I was really good in school and I never got in trouble. And my siblings, they were like the complete opposite of me. And they were always getting in trouble. They were always getting yelled at, doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. And my aunt, when I got into high school, and as soon as I started being able to work, it led to me to want to help out more because I saw her struggling just like my mom was struggling, even though my uncle was in the picture. But my uncle was always working and my aunt was working. So that kind of like pushed me to be more independent. And then when I got in high school and I was able to work, I worked as a cashier. Then I became a lead cashier at John's Incredible Pizza. Then I worked with my cousin-in-law, and he had a AC company, and I used to help him in the summers with that. And then when during high school, I worked two jobs in high school. I was a lifeguard, and then I also worked at John's still. And then my aunt did help me a couple times financially, but I mostly was dependent on myself. And growing up, in high school, I was like, to get away from everything and distract myself from things, I used school as a distraction. Water polo was a distraction and a way to take out all my anger. It was a way of me coping. I did swimming, I did ASB, student council, peer counseling. I was part of all these damn clubs. And a lot of it was just to cope and get away from everything and be busy. And in high school, I was AB student, part of all these damn committees, all these clubs. A lot of it was to just get through high school. And then being gay was a whole different story in high school. And not many people know, but I've gotten in a few fights being gay and with guys and girls because girls think I was trying to get with their mans. And guys fucking with me because, oh, you're gay, you're just on the swim team to look at guys fucking naked or whatever. And even though I use like till this day, I still use swimming as a form of therapy, just to like sound out everything. And in high school, I met through a mutual friend a guy, and we ended up dating from when I was 16, but I knew him since I was 15. And with him, I would consider him my first love, which was hard because we've only been together, 4 years? And he ended up passing when I was 20. And this, when I met him in high school, we were like, I was lying to my aunt, but long story short, I used to drive his car and say it was a coworker's, and I used to go and sneak out with him and say I was working till 2, but sometimes I was and sometimes I wasn't, but I never got in trouble. And well, I did with the car a couple times. And I was still in high school at the time. So we were dating for a while, and then I ended up joining the Navy after high school because it originally had plans to go to college, but financially that didn't seem feasible. So I ended up joining the Navy. And my first year in the Navy, that was like the hardest, and I was in for 10 years. So I went to boot camp, whatever. My aunt got to see me and graduate from boot camp, and she never flew anywhere, so it was a shocker for me. And I ended up getting orders to San Diego, and that's how I ended up in San Diego, and that's where I live currently. And he ended up trying to surprise me because he lived 50-50 in Orange County and Las Vegas. And he would travel back and forth and come down to San Diego when I got stationed there, and we would go and do things. And when I was going on my first deployment, he was actually coming down from Vegas to surprise me. So I went on deployment, and I found out a week later that he ended up passing. And I found out through a voicemail from his mom. And I didn't get the voicemail until a week later when I pulled into Hawaii. And a lot of my family didn't even know I was dating somebody. And nobody knew except for my best friends. And when I got on deployment, dude, I was a fucking mess. I was suicidal. I almost committed suicide a couple times while I was deployed in the Navy. And during that time, there was don't ask, don't tell, so I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't take leave. I couldn't go home. I was in the middle of the fucking ocean with nobody to talk to, nobody to guide me or help me deal with it. And I couldn't talk to my command. I didn't have anybody for 9 months. And during that time, I got in a lot of fights in the Navy with Southern Hicks for me being gay, me just starting fights because of other guys. And I ended up meeting a friend of mine who was a pilot, and she ended up losing her brother around the same time, and we actually helped each other through it all. But during that time was one of my hardest because I had nobody, honestly nobody, not even my siblings, because I didn't talk to my siblings. I didn't talk to anybody. The only one I kept in contact with was my aunt, but even then, I was like my mother, try to hold everything together and do everything that I can. I ended up coming back, and till this day, I still meet up with his mom on his anniversary. And she's a doctor, a gynecologist, and she knows loss and grief, and she knows, but even then, that was also her only child. And till this day, it's still hard for me to meet up with her and see his room and see his house and whatever. But because I know he wouldn't want her alone, I would go and visit her. And every anniversary, or like shoot messages to her every so often. And we would try to do different things on his anniversary just to like change it up. And then I found out that she placed me on her will, and her fiance was pissed, but she's like, he's like the closest thing to my son that I have. So, like, losing my ex, that him being the only guy that I've actually been in love with, was one of my hardest times in my life, along with losing my mom and dealing with my stepdad when I was younger, living with my aunt. It was a lot. And that's what led to a lot of my suicidal ideation. It's what led to, now that I'm older, it showed me like, okay, this explains a lot of my persona and the way I am and the way I don't talk to my siblings about my emotions or things that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. And I ended up staying in the Navy for 10 years. I did administration for 3 years, and then 7 years in the medical field. I ended up doing med-surg oncology, ICU, as a hospital corpsman. And then I ended up, because of my ICU experience, I ended up in Afghanistan for 9 months. And my siblings don't know about this either, but I was in Afghanistan for 9 months, and I was the receiving end of traumas. So there's the medics that were all in the field, and then I was actually the receiving end of when there was either explosions or gunshots or whatever, any medical emergencies or whatever, because of my trauma experience and my critical care experience. This led to me being in Afghanistan and doing training on critical care and how to do like severe like on-site surgeries and traumas and gunshots, wounds and IEDs, etc. Well, during that time, I experienced a lot of death, and with my experience with my mom, my ex, and everything else, it kind of like numbed me from other people getting hurt or whatever. So it was easier for me to work in a high stress environment. With this, I saw a lot of friends of mine that were Marines and other medics or corpsmen, and a couple of friends that I knew from training and other things that I met other people through while in the military. And I have PTSD and anxiety and depression that I've constantly been fighting with. And I've seen like really close friends of mine fucking shot in the head, brains just hanging out of their skulls, their arms blown off, their legs blown off. I've seen some crazy shit while I was in Afghanistan, and I lost a lot of friends while I was there. And it's funny because like a lot of my family doesn't know a lot of the shit that I've been through. I don't talk about anything to them. So this is like the most I've been open with. Even some of my best friends have never heard some of the stories that I've been through. And after that, I ended up getting out of the military and working out at the hospital and just sticking to inpatient. And during that time, it was like hard for me in the hospital. It took me like a couple of years to adjust, and we call it civilian life. And I was trying to get back into the normal of things, and I started to cope with things, whoring around, sleeping around, doing whatever to feel something sometimes. And during that time while I was back in San Diego, I've dated multiple people, experienced a lot of different things. I got to have a boyfriend with kids and got to experience that a little bit, and different story. And and it was good, but it was hard. But then there was a lot of times where I didn't feel like I was enough, and especially after being cheated on with a woman. And that put me through a whole loop. And then me being attached to the kids was a lot harder. A lot of the times it made me feel bad because I was building these emotional bonds with these kids that are not even mine. And I would go get my nails done with his daughter, or go have ice cream and with all the kids, and go to Chuck E. Cheese, and playing that role a little bit was good. But then after we were broke up, it was hard. But even though we knew each other for now it'd be 22 years, we're still friends and we still keep in contact. And several other relationships I've had, like I dated a Navy SEAL. That was a whole different debacle. And going and being spontaneous was a good change for me, and like got me to doing hiking and doing other things that are good for my mental health in various of ways. And then I ended up getting out of the military after this, and I ended up working at the hospital. And I've been in critical care the whole time since I've been out. First, it was acute psych, and I did that for 3 years. Then I worked in ICU, DOU, or PCU, for those who knew what it is, which is a progressive care unit, or which is still critical care. And I've been in nursing for now 16 years. And I feel like now that I've established more and learned more and been all over the world, so I've been to 22 countries, I've learned about different cultures, and doing like humanitarian missions in Honduras, doing in Djibouti, Africa, feeding kids that are younger, that are suffering way more than I have with starvation and trying to live. And a lot of these different perspectives and me going into different countries brought a different view on my own mental health and how I was fortunate compared to others. And after the military, this led me to going to school and getting multiple degrees and still going to school. I'm 36 now, which I'm working towards my MBA in nurse practitioner. And this, like, seeing these worlds and seeing all these cultures, and this led me to like want to learn more. And I'm an avid reader now. I never used to read, and now I read a lot about business, psychology, different cultures, different forms of self-care.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, but what was the reason that you don't want to go visit your mom at the cemetery?
A lot of it is because of, to me, like from a medical standpoint, I know that she's not physically there anymore. She's no longer there. So to me, it's no point. To me, it's just a stone with writing on it. I know she's not there because, we turn to dust, we fucking get eaten by maggots, etc. We digest, etc. And to me, and everybody has their own beliefs, like whether they're Catholic or whatever, Mormon, Jewish, whatever, we all see as a kind of like a see me, like with me, I don't see it as a reminder of her. That's why if I go to our house that we grew up in San Francisco, I'd rather go there. And those will bring up the memories and like that. To me, a grave is not a memory, just like I don't visit my ex's grave either. And I don't want to remember a rock. I'd rather remember a house or we grew up in or like things we dealt with in that house. So to me, a grave is just empty land. To me, a grave doesn't really stand for very much. If I was rich, I would buy the house we grew up in. But that's the difference, the sentimental value and experience and memories and all that. That's what I cherish more than a grave. And that's why I don't visit my mom, because that has no significance to me. And that's why I don't go, because to me, I know she's not there. I know that's where we buried her, but I know she's not there. She will be there in the house, in my memories, and things that we've done over the years, and things that she taught us and experienced, and family and interactions. That is what I remember. And that's why the houses matter to me than a grave. That's why I don't go to the grave. That's why I like going to my ex's house, and being there is harder for me than actually going to the grave. When I go to a cemetery, to me, it's like I'm wasting my time. That's the very much reason why. And to me, the grave doesn't mean anything to me.
You mentioned to me that you're taking therapy.
Yeah.
So when did you start taking that, and what caused you to just say I'm ready?
I think after the military was like the biggest thing. That led me to going to therapy, and then after experiencing everything that I experienced, I was able to open up about it slowly. Like it took me years of work in therapy to even get to where I'm at now, to talk to you guys. And you guys are family, and you guys don't know shit about me. But I don't open up to anybody. That's why I don't show emotions. I don't speak about issues that I'm dealing with. And I'm grateful that I have a lot of friends that I consider my own family that have been there since my mom passed. And I was able to fall on them emotionally and like during certain traumas, because they didn't really understand and they didn't know my mom. So it was a little bit easier for me to talk to them about it and give them my perception of my mom compared to talking to my siblings where they have a different perception. So I think that was part of the reason why I went to therapy, was to just talk to it to somebody that doesn't have any input at all. And that's why my best friends are still to this day my best friends, and we've known each other for years. And I talk to them about everything. I talk to them about school. I talk to them about my business. I've talked to them about things that I'm planning on doing and recommendations. And I use them for a lot of guidance and things. But I also have other resources that I utilize as well for different things. And one thing I do remember is my mom saying is, know a doctor, a lawyer, and a fucking mechanic. And because those are the things we're going to need later on as adults. And to now, I've networked a lot where I know a lot of people, but it's not the same. And that's why.
I've noticed, just from when I've been around you, that you're just you love kids. Would you say that one of the reasons is because of how you were treated growing up?
Yeah, I do love kids, but we were also brought up with kids all through our lives with my aunt, with my cousin's daycare and stuff. So I do like kids, but I do have issues with parenting styles. And that's what bothers me more than kids. It's the way that parents talk to the kids or discipline their kids in certain ways. That triggers me, and I try not to say shit because they're not my kids. But with my degree in psychology and child development and just reviewing and having experience with all that and having being in a daycare with my aunt and my cousins and seeing how they ran things and just always being around kids, I see different parenting styles, which is harder for me because those are like, oh, that's a red flag. Oh, that's a red flag. Oh, that's a red flag. And the way to interact and say things to each other. So I love kids and they're so innocent. They don't know like what they're going to be expecting later in life. None of us know, but the way we talk to our kids and interact with your kids and whether you play with them or you don't play with them, all of that makes a difference in their psyche and their development as they age. And some parents, honestly, I think should not be parents at all. They should be fixed, to be honest. Some of these kids that are having kids is ridiculous. But that's our society, and what do I get? I don't have no say in any of that. So I just shut my mouth and just see how the kids are developing. And because they're so innocent, that's why I love kids, because kids are very impressionable and they pick up everything. You guys know, you guys have two tiny ones that are picking up everything. And
Literally.
I know. That's why I like kids, because they're easy to teach and you can teach them the wrong things, but you can also teach them the right things through guidance. I think having a mentor at a young age is a big thing, especially when you're trying to learn things or you're trying to get into a specialty or whatever, because everybody has different experiences in life, and experience that Honey might have is different from what Carlos might have, and from what I might have. I may have education, I may have resources and whatever, but I think these two are more street smart than I am, where I'm more book smart, but we all have different avenues and perceptions of life. And I was telling Honey that I'm definitely not her normal people that she talks to or interviews. So having a different variety and being open is a big thing that you should have, and a mentor.
Anything else?
For suicide, there's a lot of resources. Like for me, it was hard because I was in the middle of the fucking ocean. Didn't have much of a cell phone or anything out there, but it was also limited. I think having that go-to person during your depression or just someone to talk to is good. But there's also medical people that you can talk to. There's the crisis hotline. You can go to a psychologist and talk to them about whatever issues you're having with. And I think having like a mentor, like I said earlier, is a big thing, because then you can go to them for guidance or whatever. If you have questions about anything, whether it's suicide or career or education or whatever, you have that individual to fall back on or to rely on. But it's also good to have multiple mentors for different things, or that someone to fall back on. Oh, my business is Renewal Lounge and Spa. I have clients all throughout Southern California. My website is renewalskin.com. And I kind of use that as an avenue to like get to know people, talk to people, kind of like therapy, but it's more of a laid back therapy. Education, training, and we do like massages, facials. We do advice. We do life coaching if you need it. I offer a lot of different services. So, or if you strictly just want to talk, it's totally fine either way. The website is renewalskin.com if you ever have questions. Again, my name is Fernando. And if you have any other questions, you can always hit up Honey, or you can go on my Instagram at Skin with Ralphie or Renewal Lounge and Spa. Thank you all for listening to my story, and this is Making Changes.